Debbie Binder. She is the West Bloomfield Township Clerk, and we are going to bring her in right now. Crazy times for you guys as well.
Yes, we are. When I hear you say Tyler works crazy hours, and he absolutely does, we are working crazy hours here also. I think I left here at 10 o'clock last night, and we're on 6 days a week, for pretty much 10 to 12 hours every day. So it has been crazy hours.
Okay, what kind of coffee are you drinking? Because you look quite alert right now.
Because it's early in the morning. If you catch me about 2, I have a slump, and then probably a little coffee, pick me up, and keep going the rest of the day and night. But long days, there's a big job that has to get done, so we do what we have to do. That's what clerks do, and it's what my staff does. We are processing a historic number of absentee ballots right now. We have 30,251 ballots out, and 19, actually, I'm looking at the wrong page. We actually are a little bit beyond that right now. We are 30,275 out and 20,122 ballots in already. The highest number we've ever processed is 16,783. So we are way beyond what the highest number we've already processed, with a little less than 2 weeks to go. We anticipate, and very real forecasting, that will be between 32 and 38,000 ballots coming back for absentee out and back. And that does amount to 64 and 76,000 pages, because each of our jurisdictions, each of our precincts in West Bloomfield Township has a 3-page, 2-sheet ballot. So you can double the number of ballots that we receive to how many we're going to be processing through the tabulators. We've got a big job ahead of us with a large crew to get the job done. That being said, I do want to make sure West Bloomfield knows we are not going to be an early reporter. If you look at just the sheer number we're going to have, as well as having a 2-page ballot, or 2-sheet, 3-page ballot for every single precinct, we are going to be one of the later ones to report, most likely. When we are late to report, please don't think that something's going on. What's going on is that we're taking extra caution and doing our best to make sure that precision and accuracy matter more than speed, and we get you your results as quickly as possible. Our goal is to get those results as quickly as possible, because quite honestly, my staff is going to be living on coffee, because we're not going to sleep that entire time. We're able to have shifts for our AB counting board workers, but we will be up for the long haul. So our goal is to get you your results as quickly as possible, but far more focused on accuracy and precision, because we know we want those results to be accurate.
So, Debbie, we have a lot we want to talk about with you today because there's been quite a bit developing news over the past 24 hours. But before I get into the headlines, I did see someone and they had a question on social media, which I thought was a good question. So, obviously, the state of Michigan has the website that you can track your vote. So, if you're doing the early voting, if someone submitted it and they're not seeing it show up on that it was received on that website, should they go ahead and vote in person? And if so, how is that done?
They have options. If they don't see that it shows up, they can call and we can issue a new ballot. They would submit in writing a request to spoil the ballot they were issued, and we can send a new one, or they can go to the poll. There is a process in place to absolutely allow them to go to the poll and vote. That website is updated fairly quickly. It may take, if it comes in on a Saturday, it may not show till Monday, but usually within 8 hours of us receiving it, it should be up on that website. So they can watch it's at, michigan.gov/vote. We do place it up there as received, and then very quickly it goes through a signature verification process. If there's an issue with the signature, whether it's missing or it's mismatched, it's going to show as rejected, and we are going to contact that voter by any means possible. That's why when you do fill out that application, it's helpful if you include an email and or a phone number, because if there is an issue, we are going to try to contact you by any means possible to cure it ahead of time. That being said, every voter who does have an absentee ballot that did not turn it in does have the right to go to the polls and vote in the polls if they need to or wish to.
Okay, so again, it's michigan.gov/vote. And the reason
Vote.
why you're able to track that is simply because there's each what envelope that goes out, it has a specialized barcode, I would imagine. Is that how you're tracking it?
It has a barcode that we scan it in by. When we're working with a database beforehand, we're working with the state of Michigan database. That's called the Qualified Voter File, or QVF. So we're scanning it when we send an application, when we receive an application, when we send a ballot, when we receive a ballot, it's scanned into the qualified voter file. And that's why you're able to get it through the Michigan database. The barcode does not contain, I know there's a lot of concern that it contains information about your party selection. It doesn't contain any of that personal information or how you vote.
Debbie Binder with us here on the Oakland County MegaCast. She is the West Bloomfield Township Clerk, as well as everyone knows you very well by this time. And we also want to say thank you for allowing us to Facebook stream our edition of the MegaCast today on your Facebook page, the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's Office. With that, an unusual 7:30 p.m. press conference last night with the FBI talking about foreign countries and them trying to meddle in our elections and spreading false information. What was your take on that? And I'm sure you were probably still working crazy and maybe didn't catch the full press conference, but hearing the information that came out of that, what was your feelings about that press conference?
I will be honest, Ronnie, like you said, we have been living in a cave in our own little world right now. Unless I missed something this morning, there was nothing that came from the Secretary of State. They were talking, when I saw the news reporting as well, it was speaking about those state databases, and I haven't received anything from Michigan that Michigan was one that was hacked or compromised. So I really don't feel like I can speak with any intelligence nor information on that. I would need to read the reports as well coming from the FBI or coming from those states. I have not seen or heard anything yet, unless I missed it this morning coming from the state of Michigan Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State's office does maintain the Michigan Qualified Voter File, which is that database we're working with when we're issuing absentee ballots.
So in just general process, if there was some type of, alert or awareness that they wanted you to be aware of, or you and all the other clerks here in the state of Michigan to be aware of, if our information was compromised, that would come from the state of Michigan, and
Correct.
you received nothing.
Correct. Unless I'm taking a quick look as I'm talking to you, but no, I don't have anything that I've received from the Secretary of State warning me that there was a compromise.
Well, that's good news
here. It would from the Secretary of State's office. They do maintain that database at a statewide level.
And that's good news, because Michigan is obviously a battleground state for the upcoming election. And kind of going off of that, I believe today there are going to be some attorneys that are going to be filing a lawsuit because the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, did, make a mandate prohibiting open carry at guns at polling locations. There are some attorneys that are filing a lawsuit to kind of fight that mandate. But in all honesty, has this ever been an issue here in the greater West Bloomfield area that you've been aware of in previous elections?
Okay. It is not something that has previously been an issue. It is something that we are aware of. Obviously, we want no voter to feel intimidated and every voter to feel comfortable going to the polls. If a voter is uncomfortable, they can always request an absentee ballot up to 4 p.m. the day before, the election. On Saturday, we're open on Saturday before an election from 8 to 4. We're open this Saturday from 9 to noon, and they can come in and get it an absentee ballot up to 4 p.m. on Monday. On Saturday and Monday, they would have to request it in person. We can no longer mail them after Friday. So if somebody's comfort level if somebody's concerned about going to the polls, that remains an option until almost the very last minute. That being said, again, I do want to state that it hasn't been a problem. We are awaiting an outcome on a decision, as well as the enforceability of the statement that was made. So I don't have great clarity. We are seeking a legal opinion as to how to apply it directly here in West Bloomfield Township. To apply what the Secretary of State has issued. And we are in constant conversation with the police department. There is, question as to whether it is enforceable. But again, I want that voter to feel comfortable. Know that on election day, our police chief, Chief Patton, will have additional security patrolling going around the polls, looking out and able to respond quickly if there is an incident of voter intimidation. And one thing I want to remind people as they go to the polls, we have two positions. One is a poll challenger, one is a poll watcher. These are not positions that we have as a township. These are people who can be in a poll. A poll challenger is filed with the county, and they have rights on what they can do in the polls. But we also, because they're on behalf of an entity, they do have restrictions that can be enforced. A poll watcher is anybody from the public who chooses to come stand in the precinct and watch it for the entire day if they choose. However, it's important to know a poll watcher has no rights. They can't, no rights meaning they can't talk to a voter, they can't interact with a voter, they can't look at anything, they can't touch anything. All they can do is stand there and watch. At a point, a poll watcher or a poll challenger becomes disruptive, then it's our right to have them removed. So I do want people to feel secure going to the polls on election day, knowing that if somebody were to become disruptive, we would take steps to have them removed. Our chair people are trained, our chief, our police chief, who has been tremendously helpful and tremendously instrumental in helping us design our plans, comes in and speaks with our chair people to talk first and foremost about de-escalation and situational awareness so that they feel empowered in the precinct. But our goal is to, again, to make sure ultimately that every voter does not feel intimidated. Every voter does have the right to cast their vote in comfort. And if there is a concern or a voter is concerned, they need to know that every voter in the state of Michigan with Proposal 3 of 2018 has a right to vote by absentee ballot up to 4 p.m. the Monday before the election.
Debbie, I have to say I'd be a terrible poll watcher because I like to talk with everyone. But a poll challenger, how does that work? Do they then, if they see something that they feel wasn't right, then they would go to a member of your team to express that discomfort or whatever they feel is to be disputed?
So a poll challenger is somebody who has filed with the county. They're either representing on behalf of a party or an issue or an organization that has an interest in an issue. They have filed with the county in a certain time period prior to an election, and they have a credential issued by Oakland County. So there isn't a surprise challenger. The parties do always have challenger status, but they will come to the precinct with a challenger credential. We usually know who's going to have people in the precincts. They have a right to sit behind the electronic poll book and look at who's coming. Because they are a challenger, they're not a voter, we do have a right to enforce a mask as well as enforce a 6-foot social distance for them to sit behind. Usually what a challenger is looking for is two things. One, they're looking to make sure we're following process and that no voter is sent away without being given the opportunity to go to the to town hall and register. Now that same-day registration is allowed with Proposal 3 of 2018. So they want to make sure we don't turn a voter away who could be sent to town hall to register. And oftentimes they're looking to see who has already come out to vote so they can get on the phone and get other people out to vote. They do have a right to look at the electronic poll book, and they do have a right to look at the applications. They do not have a right to touch anything. So they can't touch an application, they can't touch the electronic poll book, and their interactions have to be directly with the chairperson, not with the voter themselves. They do have a right to challenge a voter on their age, citizenship, or residency. They have to have a reason to do that. They can't just randomly decide that voter number 10, they're going to question their challenge their citizenship. It's all recorded in the poll book that is a summary of the election that goes to the Oakland County Board of Canvassers. But they do have the right to challenge them, and then a chairperson would put that voter under oath, confirm their eligibility to vote, and the voter would be able to cast their vote if they were eligible, or there's a process if they're not. But again, they can't just decide to challenge. They have to have a good reason to do that, and they have to issue the challenge to a challenger. And once that voter is handed a ballot, they can't issue a challenge any longer.
West Bloomfield Township Clerk Debbie Binder with us on the Oakland County Megacast, joining us today as well on the Clerk's Office's Facebook page via Facebook Live. Debbie, with all these different rules and regulations that are in place, obviously a lot of training is required for those that are working at the polls and those working on the absent voter counter board. How much more of an emphasis does is put on training at this point in the process, with us being less than 2 weeks away from Election Day?
We are constantly training. What we rely on training and compensation to compensate for what our election inspectors don't get in routine practice. They may get to practice this position once, twice, maybe 3 times a year, yet it requires tremendous precision and accuracy. So training is how we compensate for what they don't get in practice. That being said, I encourage people to have patience with people who are working in our precinct. We staff up to additional 250 to 350 this election, up to close to 400 people for election day. Again, they're not doing this routinely. It's not an everyday activity. So we do rely on training, but they are people who you have to have a little patience with because they may not remember. They have a process. If they forget something, they're going to go to their chairperson. If their chairperson doesn't know, they're going to come to us. We are still training. We focus on each different role. The electronic poll book person has a specific training. Our election inspectors have a specific training. Our absent voter counting board has a specific training. People working in the receiving board have a specific training, and we have a training for our chair people as well, who oversee our precinct. What's important to know is our chair people are almost all, and I think in this election, they're all people that this isn't their first rodeo. They've done, most of them have been here 5, 10 plus years. They come back year after year. It is a paid position to work an election, but I will tell you that if I didn't pay them, 80% would still come back because they feel like they're part of something big and part of something important. So I am extremely fortunate to have the group of election inspectors that I have. And since, I've been talking to you for a long time that we need additional election inspectors, I am proud to say that all that effort has paid off. We are over 300 new elections inspectors. We are actually training people right now that we may or may not use for the absent voter counting board so that we know if we have to go to a pool on election day because we have so many to count, that we have a trained pool ready to go. At the very least, it will be like a citizens academy, and we will have people who are reassured in the absentee ballot process. But it is a big job training. I think I've already conducted 6 or 7 trainings. Jim has conducted 6 of them, and I think we have about 8 more to go. So that training at 2 hours apiece is a big part of our preparation for an election to make sure that our election inspectors do feel like they're confident and empowered on election day to run the precinct. One thing that we did do this year to change, in recognizing the challenges of this year in terms of COVID and in terms of the contentiousness of this election, we will have all of our election inspectors in a precinct will have a T-shirt on so that they are distinguishable and identifiable, so that a voter has no confusion who they're interacting with in terms of discussing or who hands them a ballot, or making sure that when they go to Station 4 to scan their ballot, that the person who takes their stub is in fact one of our election inspectors.
Debbie, it's always great having you on with us here on the Oakland County MegaCast. Quickly, before I let you go, you said West Bloomfield is not going to be an early turnout because of the length of the actual ballot. When do you think the results are going to be able to come in? Is this going to be 2-3 days later, which is being anticipated in many parts of the country?
Honestly, Ronnie, as much as I don't have an exact answer, I don't think it will be days. My goal is to have an answer by 3 to 5 in the morning, at the very latest by noon on Wednesday. But I think 3 to 5, we just had a meeting this morning. I do believe 3 to 5 in the morning is realistic. However, I don't want to commit to it and disappoint. Again, it's a monumental task. 16,783 sheets being our record, and we know we're going to be processing 64 to 76,000 sheets this time. It's a big difference. It's 4 times that amount. Now, in August, things were moving very smoothly, and we reported our results by 10 o'clock. Part of what takes time and is the great unknown for Election Day is that we don't know how many ballots we will get on Election Day. We've been working hard to encourage people to return that ballot early. We have a sticker on the front of the beacon today that says, "Don't delay, return your absentee ballot today." Those early returns will help us expedite on Election Day. In August, we received 20% of our absentee ballots, which was 3,400 ballots on Election Day. Any absentee ballot that comes in undergoes the same process. We scan the ballot in, we pull the application that the voters submitted, we compare the signature to the application, and we do what we call greening, but we have a checklist on each ballot to compare that we intake. That all of that has to be done before we can deliver those ballots over to the absent voter counting board. So the more we have those ballots ahead of time, we're able to do those processes ahead of time. So if we look at getting 20% of our ballots on Election Day this time, we're looking at getting 6,000 to 7,000 plus ballots on Election Day. Obviously, if we have to take in those and process them on the back end to get them to the AV County Board, that is going to slow down the process. So this is something that the community can help with. And if you guys can keep reminding every time you're talking to our community to get that ballot in early. And our saying is, don't delay, return your absentee ballot today. Number 1, it accommodates for mail delays. Number 2, it allows time for you to cure a problem if you had a signature that was missing or mismatched. And 3, it allows time for us to have those back end processes done ahead of time and expedite our processing on election day. So if you have your ballot and you want to hold on to election day, please don't turn it in early. Our drop boxes, there's one on each side of the building as well as one in the lobby of Town Hall, are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're checked multiple times a day, including on weekends. Get those ballots turned in. The more we have them ahead of time, the quicker we're going to be able to get those results to you on election. Let's call it election the next morning, because I don't think it'll be on election evening.
Well, Debbie Binder, always great having you with us here on the Oakland County MegaCast. Every time you're on the show, I learn something new, so we appreciate your time, and we want to say thank you to you and your entire team, because we know you're working around the clock, but also thank you for all that you're doing to make sure that we have a smooth election.